Welcome back to another gripping tale of justice and family betrayal. For our new viewers, you're about to witness a story that will shake you to your core, and for our loyal subscribers, you know we never disappoint when it comes to raw, emotional truth. Today's story is about Detective Sarah Martinez, whose final case before retirement became the most personal investigation of her entire career. Some family secrets are buried so deep, they take decades to surface, but when they do, the reckoning is absolute. My name is Sarah Martinez, and after 32 years on the force, I thought I'd seen everything. Murders, betrayals, family secrets that would make your skin crawl. I was 3 weeks away from retirement when the Marcus Williams case landed on my desk. Just another cold case review, they said. Just tie up loose ends, they said. I wish I'd walked away. But then again, maybe Marcus Williams deserved someone who wouldn't walk away. It started on a Tuesday morning in November. I was cleaning out old files when Detective Reynolds dropped a thick manila folder on my desk. Final case, Martinez. 22-year-old murder. Kid named Marcus Williams, beaten to death in an alley downtown. Family's been pushing for another look. Marcus Williams. I stared at the name for a long moment. It sounded familiar, but after 3 decades of cases, they all started to blur together. I opened the file and saw a young black man's face staring back at me. 20 years old when he died. Aspiring teacher. Honor student. No criminal record. The crime scene photos showed a brutal beating. Someone had wanted Marcus to suffer. The original investigation concluded it was a robbery gone wrong, even though his wallet and phone were still on him. Case went cold within 6 months. No arrests. No justice. I started reviewing witness statements, and that's when I found it. A police report filed by Marcus's sister, claiming 3 young men had been harassing Marcus for weeks before his death. She'd given names, descriptions, everything. But the report was marked unfounded and buried in supplemental files. The names made my blood run cold. David Chen. Robert Sullivan. Michael Martinez. Michael Martinez. My nephew. I sat in my car in the parking garage for 20 minutes, hands shaking as I called my sister Elena. We need to talk about Michael. Sarah? What's wrong? Is Michael okay? Elena, I need you to tell me where Michael was the night of October 15, 2002. Long silence. Why are you asking about that? Just answer me. He was home. With us. Why? But I could hear it in her voice. The slight tremor. The pause before answering. Elena had always been a terrible liar. I drove to the Williams family home that evening. Marcus's mother, Dorothy, answered the door. She was smaller than I'd imagined, but her eyes held a strength that 30 years of police work had taught me to recognize. Mrs. Williams, I'm Detective Martinez. I'm reviewing your son's case. She invited me in, served me coffee, and told me about Marcus. How he tutored kids for free. How he wanted to teach elementary school. How he'd been getting threats for weeks before someone killed him. The police back then, they didn't want to hear it, she said quietly. Said boys like Marcus made enemies. Said maybe he was dealing drugs. My baby never touched drugs in his life. Tell me about the threats. Dorothy pulled out a worn notebook. She'd documented everything. Dates, times, descriptions. 3 young men in a pickup truck following Marcus home from work. The same men calling him racial slurs outside the community college. The escalating harassment that the police dismissed as boys being boys. I kept this evidence for 22 years, she said, handing me the notebook. Waiting for someone to care enough to listen. I traced the entries with my finger. Michael's name appeared 17 times. The next morning, I pulled Michael's juvenile record. Sealed, but I had access. Multiple arrests for assault. Hate crime charges that were plea bargained down to misdemeanors. And there it was, buried in a supplement report I'd somehow missed, Michael's alibi for October 15, 2002. The reporting officer was Lieutenant James Martinez. My brother. Michael's father. I called in sick and spent the day in my apartment, staring at case files spread across my kitchen table. Every detail painted the same picture. 3 privileged white kids had terrorized and murdered Marcus Williams, and my family had helped cover it up. That evening, I drove to my brother James's house. He was grilling on the back patio, beer in hand, looking every inch the respected retired police lieutenant. Sarah. What brings you by? We need to talk about Marcus Williams. The beer slipped from his hand, shattering on the concrete. I don't know what you're talking about. 22 years, James. You covered up a murder for 22 years. He looked around nervously, then pulled me inside. Keep your voice down. Elena's here. Good. She needs to hear this too. Elena emerged from the kitchen, and I saw the guilt written across both their faces. They'd been carrying this secret for over 2 decades, and it had hollowed them out. Michael was 18, James said quietly. Just a kid who made a terrible mistake. Marcus Williams was 20. Also just a kid. Except he didn't make any mistakes. You don't understand the pressure I was under, James continued. My own son arrested for murder. My career, my reputation, everything would have been destroyed. So you falsified his alibi report. I was protecting my family. You were protecting a killer. Elena finally spoke, her voice barely a whisper. We thought if we just kept quiet, if Michael stayed out of trouble, maybe. Maybe what? Maybe Marcus's family would just forget their son was murdered. I pulled out Dorothy Williams's notebook and placed it on the coffee table. His mother documented everything. Every threat, every incident. She knew it was Michael and his friends, and you buried it. James picked up the notebook with shaking hands. We can't change what happened. No, but we can finally tell the truth. That night, I called Michael. He was 39 now, married with kids of his own, working as a construction supervisor. Living a full life that Marcus Williams never got to have. Uncle Sarah? What's up? I need to see you. Tonight. Is everything okay? No, Michael. Nothing's been okay for 22 years. We met at a diner downtown, 3 blocks from where Marcus died. Michael looked older than his years, and I wondered if the guilt had aged him the way it had aged his parents. You know why I called you? Michael stared at his coffee. Dad said you were asking questions. I'm not asking anymore, Michael. I know what you did. He broke down then, 22 years of suppressed guilt pouring out in ugly sobs. It wasn't supposed to happen like that. We were just messing with him. Dave and Bobby, they said we were just going to scare him. But you killed him. Dave hit him with the pipe. But I was there. I didn't stop it. I ran. And then your father made it all disappear. Michael nodded, unable to meet my eyes. I wanted to confess so many times. But Dad said it would destroy the whole family. My mom, my kids, everyone. What about Marcus's family? What about the family you destroyed? The next week was the hardest of my career. I interviewed David Chen, now a real estate developer, and Robert Sullivan, a corporate lawyer. Both had built successful lives on the foundation of their covered-up crime. Both broke when confronted with the evidence. I sat across the table from each of them in separate interview rooms, watching privileged men realize their carefully constructed lives were about to collapse. We were young, David kept repeating. We made a mistake. Beating someone to death isn't a mistake, I told him. It's murder. The DNA evidence from Marcus's clothing had degraded over time, but we had Dorothy's documentation, Michael's confession, and corroborating testimony from witnesses who'd been too afraid to come forward 22 years ago. On Thursday, I called Dorothy Williams. Mrs. Williams, we have arrests in your son's case. She was quiet for so long I thought the call had dropped. Then I heard her crying. 22 years, she whispered. 22 years I've been waiting for this call. I'm sorry it took so long. Detective Martinez, may I ask you something? Of course. The boys who killed my Marcus, one of them is your family, isn't he? I closed my eyes. Yes, sir. That must be hard for you. Her grace in that moment broke something in me. After everything my family had put her through, she was concerned about my feelings. The arrests made headlines. Retired lieutenant's son charged in 22-year-old murder. The media loved the story of family connections and police corruption. I testified before the grand jury, presenting evidence that would send my own nephew to prison. Elena stopped speaking to me. James moved out of state. The family I'd known for 53 years dissolved in a matter of weeks. But every night, I looked at the photo of Marcus Williams on my desk and felt something I hadn't felt in years: peace. Michael, David, and Robert all pled guilty to avoid trial. Michael got 15 years, the others got 12. Not enough, considering Marcus would have been 42 now, probably married with children of his own, touching young lives as the teacher he dreamed of becoming. On my last day as a detective, Dorothy Williams came to the station. She brought me a small framed photo of Marcus in his cap and gown from community college graduation. "I want you to have this," she said. "So you remember that justice isn't about protecting family. It's about protecting truth." I retired that Friday, but my work wasn't done. I spent the next year working with the district attorney's office, reviewing other cases James had handled, looking for patterns of evidence manipulation. We found 3 more instances where he'd buried evidence to protect connected families. The Williams family filed a civil suit against the city. They won a significant settlement, but Dorothy used most of the money to establish the Marcus Williams Truth and Justice Foundation, providing legal aid to families whose cases had been mishandled by police. I volunteer there now, using my investigative skills to help families like Dorothy's find the justice they've been denied. It doesn't make up for what my family did, but it's a start. My relationship with Elena and James is gone, probably forever. Michael writes to me from prison sometimes, thanking me for finally letting him tell the truth. He says the guilt was killing him slowly, and that prison is easier than carrying that secret. If you found this story compelling, please consider subscribing to Revenge Chronicles. We believe every story of truth deserves to be heard, no matter how painful. Sometimes justice means choosing strangers over family. Sometimes it means destroying everything you've known to honor someone you never met. I learned that real family aren't the people who share your blood, they're the people who share your values. Marcus Williams was 20 years old when 3 privileged kids decided his life didn't matter. Dorothy Williams spent 22 years fighting for truth because she knew her son's life had meaning. And sometimes, justice requires a lifetime of service to people you've failed. Thanks for watching this episode of Revenge Chronicles. The truth isn't always easy, but it's always worth fighting for. Please like and subscribe for more stories of justice and redemption, and remember that every voice deserves to be heard.